Hold on just a second. I got to go to my history here. What happened to that article I had? I had an article. Let's see if I can find this. All right, Kemp accuses Cagle of joining liberal conspiracy theorists in push for paper ballots. So let's go to, first of all, let me just bring up, we always got to do this for the college students that think that the State of the Union has already taken place. This is in the state of Georgia, which, okay. Let me set this up first. Let's go to Casey Cagle, put the picture up there. This is Casey Cagle. So when I tell the story, you can interact, you can interchange anytime you want, Amanda. But first of all, let's put Casey Cagle's picture up. He is the lieutenant governor, currently the lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia. Now, there's going to be some pros and cons to my comments. Currently, as the lieutenant governor in the state of Georgia presides over the Senate, the state Senate, okay? So the guy that's presiding over the state Senate for quite several years has listened to the argument, okay, just going to put it like this, and if he was on the show, I would ask him why now? But this gentleman, the lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia, has listened to the argument of paper ballots, all right, to mirror voting machines for several years as a senator, okay? Now the argument is the Georgia's die-bolt touchscreen voting machines are way outdated. The technology is old. I think it's XP. You can't get updates or whatever, okay? But it's old technology. That is a fact. It would cost millions of dollars to change. Anytime a state changes their election system, they got to look for millions of dollars to do that, okay? So that's a fact too. But if you're in the state of Georgia and you hear somebody say a paper trail, we need a paper trail, okay? For elections, the state of Georgia does not have a paper trail. There will be the argument on a recount that there's a paper trail. But if a die-bolt voting machine located in any precinct in the state of Georgia spits out that a candidate got 622 votes, and they say, well, we need a paper trail, they can hit print, and it rolls out the paper and says 623 votes. If the machine says 623, all it can do is print what the machine says is in the machine. So they'll call that a paper trail because most precincts, I'm not for sure of the law, all right, but most counties and most voting precincts, they hit a printout and they put it in a file, and that's the closest thing, my knowledge, of a paper trail you have in the state of Georgia to a vote. Now many, and I know Josh McCoon, current Senator Josh McCoon from Columbus, Georgia, which is running for Secretary of State, this gets convoluted, is pushing for a paper ballot system where you can mirror up whatever the machine said with a paper ballot, and it's not just a printout from the die-bolt machine. That being said, Casey Cagle, which presides over the Senate, lieutenant governor, current lieutenant governor, he wants to be the next governor of Georgia. He wants to succeed, okay, Nathan Deal wants to be the next governor, okay? So, now, let me put this up, okay? Brian Kemp. Now, let me be clear, and I'm inviting any of these guys on the show to, and I do know Secretary of State Kemp will be here in February. We got a note that he will actually be in studio in February to sit down with us here at Good Morning from the Office. But Secretary Brian Kemp, he is the Georgia Secretary of State. Currently, he is seeking to be the governor. Now, the Secretary of State's office in Georgia presides over the election. They have to certify them. I know that this is for you college students, okay? The Secretary of State certifies the election, sends it to the governor, if it's a state race, if it's a local county race, city race, they still get certified, sent to the governor, get recorded in the state records. Certified from Secretary of State of Georgia. If it's a congressional race, if it's a state U.S. Senate race or presidential race, it still has to be certified. The election gets certified by the state and sent in to the government, whatever. So he presides over elections. Now, he could, this is where you can correct me, he could, in all of his years as Secretary of State, he could have publicly said, I want to change the voting system. He could have. He could have said, I want a different system. I don't want touchscreen die-bolt machines. He could have said that. But one thing you have to remember, Secretary of State, his budget gets set during the legislative session, okay, that is currently going on. He does not write any legislation. He does not vote on any legislation. He has an office in the state. He's a constitutional officer elected by you to oversee the Secretary of State's office for the state of Georgia. That being said, the only body that can change the voting system and it is the legislative body in Atlanta. That's it. It's as simple as a representative or a senator carrying a piece of legislation in and saying, hey, I want some co-sponsors. And you get co-sponsors because if you got 15 or 20, that means, hey, there's some power out there in the state behind this thing. All right, we need to make get looked at, all right? So they get the co-sponsors, and then they get it to the floor, they change it, and they allocate the money. House of Representatives of the state of Georgia is the appropriations of all funds. So the Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, which is running for governor, does not have a vote in the legislature, doesn't have one, okay? He could have asked, you could look up and see if he's had record of saying to state legislators, hey, we need to change the voting system, I'm concerned. But my opinion is it has to be done by legislation, and it has to be budgeted, and there has to be enough money to make a clean change within the state. So, that being said, the paper ballot is becoming a hot issue between these two. And I have been wondering for a while when Cagle would strike and Kemp would retaliate. I'm serious, these two here. Been waiting for when these two were going to kindly come out. And they have. Kemp accuses Cagle of joining, and this is from the AJC, Kemp accuses Cagle of joining liberal conspiracy theorists in push for paper ballots. Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle's decision to back a bill that calls for the state to scrap its 16-year-old touchscreen voting system and replace it with paper-based system has triggered a sharp response from Secretary of State Brian Kemp, who oversees state elections. Cagle told WABE that a paper ballot trail ensures the accuracy is there, and that there are no games that potentially could be played. Okay, although I may agree with the comment, why now? My question for candidates always is why now? Why not last year? Why not before the presidential election? Why not when you felt maybe they could have taken the 6th district? Why now? Okay, is Casey Cagle that desperate? Okay, Kemp campaign sent out a scattering response. This is from the AJC to Cagle's idea, claiming he's joined the ranks of the liberal conspiracy theorists like Barack Obama and Stacey Abrams, a Democrat candidate for governor, who is supporting his plan. This is a comment from Brian Kemp. Is Casey Cagle that desperate for higher office that he would side with the radical left to tear down Georgia and its institutions, said Kemp. This decision needs to be made with input from legislators, county election officials, Georgia voters, and Secretary of State, not conspiracy theorists or misinformation craven candidates for a higher office. Cagle campaign manager Scott Brinkley fired back at Kemp Thursday. This is the final shot. The conservative Republican senators supporting his legislation would be surprised to hear they're backing leftist agenda when in reality they just don't trust the current Secretary of State to run a competent election. Tell you that's a fire back with good reason, he said. We're looking to restore trust in our process. Now, my question is, the conservative Republican senators supporting Casey Cagle's legislation would be surprised they're backing leftist agenda. Folks, they're not surprised this is an issue because senators, Republican conservative senators, why now? Why now? That's my question. Do I agree there needs to be a change in the election system in the state of Georgia? How about tagging on? Now, let me throw this out here at you because I only got a minute and this is the end of this segment. How about tagging on to this? Okay? Requiring the identification to be shown to vote and changing the driver's license in Georgia where illegals get authorized driving permits instead of a driver's license that looks as legitimate as yours and mine. Why not? So you want to change the voting system? Let's get the bill moving that changes illegals. If illegals or foreign state officials, see, when foreign state officials, ambassadors, people like that, whatever they are, if they, Mercedes-Benz has foreign officials that come here and work, and we do give them a driver's license, but they're not citizens of the state of Georgia, they're not citizens in the United States of America, they should be getting driver's license, driver's permits. Georgia driving permits is what they should be getting. Mercedes-Benz. What's the big deal? You can drive. It's a drive, but you can't vote. And I'm telling you right now, you take a Georgia driver's license where there's a foreign official here representing a company, or you take a Georgia driver's license that's issued to illegals, and you may be shocked that an illegal can get a driver's license with you, and it resembles, except for a very small area that most people cannot see, it resembles identical to your driver's license. So when you show up to vote and you say, here's my ID, and you register, show up, and go vote. Really? Tag that to everything else. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about. I'm almost done. I got to finish with one thing here in that segment because we want to put that up. And we want to tag Cagle and put their boxing gloves on. Woo, boy, that's trading some barbs.